One bit of news, and then I'll open it up for questions. Because of a lot of cooperation and work between various constituencies, not the least of which are members of both parties of the General Assembly, I'm announcing that we're going to back up for public school employees the enrollment date from October 1st to November 1st. That gives some more breathing room as we work with the General Assembly, the superintendents, teachers groups, public school employees groups, with specifics to see if any consensus can be achieved to address the rate hikes that have been announced. So this gives another month, in effect, for those employees where they are not forced to make a decision either to keep it or not keep it. Now, that doesn't change anything on the October 1st for state employees, so don't be writing stuff that they're changed, because they still got to make a decision. But along with that is we're going to need a consensus, if one is going to be achieved from all these various constituencies, by about October 15th, or else what comes out November 1st is still going to be the same thing that was coming out October 1st, if y'all understand what I'm saying. All right, with that, I'll answer questions.
Where are you at right now in terms of trying to find that consensus? And is October 15th the point where you just say we can't?
No, I don't think you ever say never, but as a practical matter, EBD and the folks can't get their literature out, can't get all the information out. I mean, it takes a little while to do that. For the November 1st, for a January sign-up, a January effective date, if they don't have some lead time to prepare the material. And so the October 15th date is what they've told me is kind of their drop dead date, to give them enough time to be able to print material for the November 1st. That doesn't mean you couldn't do it in February, for that matter, but what it means is you're not likely to change anything come January 1 if you don't have it changed by the October 15th date, at least in terms of a consensus. The second part of your question was
where are you at in terms of consensus likelihood?
Well, we're not there. We've had some individual meetings prior to today, but we had two big group meetings today. One with superintendents that I don't select who comes. I ask the organization that represents them, and I don't know how many we had. Y'all probably are better judge of that. I bet we had 50. We had a ton of them. The room was full and too deep around, and we had an hour and a half or so, hour, 15 minutes discussion, all kinds of input back and forth. You know, it's like other negotiations. You don't do all this right now in front because no consensus was achieved. Several different discussions were pointed out and talked about, and I was very pleased with both the amount of the superintendents and the participation was here, and their attitude about trying to find a solution, and whatever solution is going to hurt somebody, and probably all of us in equal shares in terms of cost and money, or sacrifice, or all of the above, because the numbers that came out are, it wasn't EBD trying to be mean to folks. They're real numbers. You got claims, I mean, this is private enterprise at work. I mean, you got claims that go out X dollars, and you got income coming in at Y dollars, and when the claims going out at X dollars are significantly higher than the income coming in, you got to make a change. And rather than do away with their insurance, the change is to increase the income. Well, that's the place for income's premiums. There are other potential places for income, and that's some of the things that we've been discussing. So I was pleased with that. Then this afternoon we had legislators, and I don't know, we had probably 25, something like that, Republicans, Democrats, senators, representatives, good cross-section. And I have the same response about them. I was pleased with their engagement. I was pleased with their questions, thoughts, and discussion, and they left with the understanding that they're going to have to see, with all of the various things that were thrown out, if a consensus can be achieved. Then tomorrow I'm meeting with teachers groups and public school employees groups. Isn't that tomorrow? Yes. To get their input. We couldn't do all three in the same day in light of other schedule issues. So we're, you know me, it's the way I do business. We get the people on the front line, the people that actually help make the policy, involved in the negotiation stages, the discussion stages, and the formulation stages, rather than just doing something in a ivory tower somewhere and presenting them and saying take it or leave it. That's not good public policy, and it's not good leadership. So this is part of the process that we go through whenever you've got a new issue to be resolved. And so far, I'm optimistic. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to have a consensus. I mean, you may end up with a consensus among superintendents that public school employees hate. You may end up with a consensus public school employees like that superintendents hate. You may end up with a consensus of both that the legislature hates. So it's going, for me to call a special session, we need two things. We need a short-term, immediate plan to relieve catastrophic increases if we can. But that has to be accompanied by a second phase, and that's a systemic, longer-term solution, so you're just not kicking a can down the road for the next governor or for the next legislature a year and a half from now. So you need both. And a consensus, the real consensus is the legislative consensus. I mean, that's who you ultimately have to have. But as a practical matter, that means that their folks back home have to some degree, be supportive, or at least enough of them. So you really do need the superintendents and teachers to understand, or else the legislators end up getting so much pressure that they can't come to a consensus. So that's why we approach it in the way we did. Mike, I'm sorry I cut you off.
So did you give them a series of proposals and ask for their input, or what exactly did you do?
Well, if I did, I'm not going to tell you what they are.
I mean, in general terms.
In general terms, we talked about several proposals, some of which were elicited from the groups. In other words, superintendents would make suggestions, or legislators would make suggestions. Some of them came from me. What I tried to do was wait toward the end and let everybody have their say, and then when everybody was after everybody got through having their say, I'd throw out some possibilities.
So in general terms, again, is it a mix of additional money for the system as well as some trims and benefits? Is that
All those things were discussed. But additional money for the system can come from a variety of sources. Right now, 100% of it under the current plan is coming from the employees. Right now, you do nothing. What we're trying to do is change that significantly, so they're not paying 100% of that. But I don't think anybody thinks there's not going to be some increase, because the population at large ends up with health insurance increase, premium increases.
Governor, you've talked about changing this from October to November. What's the urgency level like for lawmakers in getting this done as soon as possible?
Well, the urgency level is, what happens is they got a new plan, next year's plan, that goes into effect January 1st, and that's when these new premiums hit. And new benefit changes hit too, because part of even scaling back where it was, they already changed benefits. That's old law. I mean, that's old news. They did that back when they met, August, which I assume you all have already talked about. But if we do nothing, then they've got to sign up October 1st for whether or not they're going to continue to take this coverage starting January 1st. Well, right now they're looking at huge premium increases, and that could really deter some that might otherwise sign up if they weren't getting hit with such huge premium increases. So what I've done is I've backed that up to give them an additional 30 days. So they don't feel like they've got to make a decision to go get some other kind of insurance or go without insurance or do anything. I back that up to November 1st.
What's the urgency level like, though, inside the Capitol?
It's pretty urgent, because October 15th is when the EBD folks need a message from me that, look, I think we can fix this problem and only charge X percent increase in premium instead of Y percent increase in premium. But I can't tell them that, and they want to know that by October 15th. So I can't tell them that if I don't have the feedback and a general consensus of opinion from the General Assembly particularly, but all the groups in general, that we're agreed upon a problem. I could call a special session tomorrow like other governors have done, and we could waller around and spend your tax dollars down here for 45 days arguing about stuff and never get anything accomplished except spending your money. That ain't how I do business.
So you need that consensus or to know by October 15th, I presume you're talking about potentially a special session the week after?
Potentially a special session could be fairly quickly, yeah. We'd look at everybody's schedule, as many schedules as possible, and holiday dates, and yeah, I mean, you know, if you had a consensus, theoretically, you do a special session in 3 days.
Do you think after your meetings this morning and this afternoon that this consensus can be reached and a special session called?
It's too early. It's too early to speculate.
Have you started counting or asking legislators to start counting votes?
No. I asked legislators, I said, based on all that we talked about, I said, you all go figure out who your leaders are that you want to assign this task to, because it's not my job to tell them who that is. And somebody needs to explain all this to your membership in as much detail as possible and start a roll call sheet and get it to me.
So I guess is there a specific plan that's actually being?
No, not yet. There are specific points that we talked about, and if, I guess, this core group came to a consensus, the 25 or 30 or however many were there, on certain principles, then I would expect them to share that with their colleagues in a way that was sufficiently specific to allow their colleagues to say yes or no. They'd vote for that or they wouldn't. And then using that tally sheet, like we used to do, roll call sheet, you could figure out how many votes you got. You need more than 51. You need a cushion.
You're not talking about adding anything else beyond teachers' insurance on that special session?
Well, you know,
Like ethics?
well, I'm not ruling that out. We didn't talk about that. I'm certainly not ruling that out. That's been discussed. And some members of the General Assembly have discussed it more than others. I'm not ruling that out. That wasn't the subject of our conversation today, however.
Have you talked to any legislative leaders about that possibility?
I've talked to folks about that possibility.
The 15th of October is the deadline for the employment benefits division. When the lawmakers left the room, did they have a deadline to report back?
No.
On where they were?
No, they don't have a deadline. They do what they want. They know the time crunch, to answer your question. And they're smart folks. I mean, they know what that means. But no, I don't give them ultimatums or deadlines.
If there were teachers in the room now, would you tell them that you're optimistic that something could change?
No, as I just said, in answer to the previous question, it's too early to speculate. I think there's some hard decisions and hard work and gut-wrenching, tough things that have to be done. And it's not painless. You're asking, is the state and are the taxpayers paying more? Are school districts paying more? Are teachers and other public school employees paying more? And in what combination? Or are we changing benefits significantly to alter that? And if so, how? And are we changing other requirements in terms of participation? And if so, how? A lot of this is complex. And then a lot of it's confounded, and there are other complexities that based on changes in federal health care law going forward a year from now. So, there are lots of nuances here that were discussed, a ton of them. It wasn't as simple as, we got X dollars, well, how are we going to spend it? There's a lot more complex than that. And the legislators have a lot more decisions to make than just a pure monetary decision, although that is certainly a significant part of what they have to decide. It's not all of what they have to decide. And I'm willing, and I don't shirk my responsibility. Part of the governor's responsibility is to propose. And I do that, and did that, and will continue to do that. But ultimately I realize that I can propose all I want to. If they don't pass it, it doesn't make any difference.
So I just wanted to make sure I heard what you said correctly. You're not handicapping the chances.
I'm not handicapping at all. I'm not being positive or negative about it, Mike. To answer Rob's question and then to answer your question, it's too early to speculate based upon what we talked about, what the chances are. So it's not a negative or a positive. It's just it's way too early to even speculate. Anything else?
Governor, today the insurance exchange rates came out.
Yeah.
Also,
Weren't you happy with that? I was happy with that.
why were we happy with it?
Because it's 10% less than what was projected with using the actuarial stuff that we've been using all along. The cost, 10%, the premium, the cost is 10% less. It's a better deal for taxpayers and everybody. May not be a better deal for insurance companies, but I think it's 25% below their requested rates, but they're all happy because they all signed contracts. Well, they may not be happy, but they're still in business. Did I get that right? I got my insurance people over here because they know more about it than I do. Thank y'all.